The Amazon rainforest is the most important ecosystem on the planet. It's home to a third of the world's animal species, but the United Nations says the situation for its wildlife is now critical.
I'm heading to Iquitos, which is in the Amazon basin, and that's because I've been told that this is the epicenter when it comes to smuggling wildlife. And it's easy to see why, because when I look around this river, you know, this forest is just teeming with life, and it's a maze of waterways which you could smuggle anything through and nobody would have a clue.
Every year, thousands of animals are captured illegally from the rainforest and trafficked through the remote frontier town of Iquitos and on to a global market in exotic pets. In this part of Peru, many regard animals from the rainforest as commodities. It's illegal to capture and sell these wild animals without a permit, but all sorts of species, even endangered ones, are openly sold for food.
So I'm getting my first flavour of a market here, and straight away I've spotted some bushmeat. There's a crocodile over there, blatantly on display. Look at that. Disculpen, ¿qué es esto? So this is the tail of the caiman. So it's bushmeat all around me.
But there's a much more lucrative trade: wildlife trafficking. After a few simple inquiries, we're told about a woman who runs a stall selling bushmeat, but who also offers live animals for the exotic pet trade. We've set up a meeting with a market trader. We can't film her openly with the camera because there might be some hostility from the other market traders and her as well, so I'm wearing a hidden camera. We've come to meet a woman known locally as Senora Natty. She arrives and asks us to follow her to her home nearby.
¿Qué tal? Bien. Bien.
I tell her I'm looking to buy exotic animals for my private collection, but I need to check first they'll survive the colder climate in the UK. So we say we need video of the animals to send to an expert. That backs up what I film on my secret camera. I have no idea what to expect.
A ver.
Muéstrale.
What is it? It's a snake. Wow.
Cuando tú le crías de chiquito, es mansito.
What type of snake is this?
Este es arcoíris.
It's a rainbow snake.
Acá está el motelo.
Wow.
That's a tortoise.
Wow.
These are all protected animals.
Acá tengo una.
How big does this grow? This one?
Crece así grande. Grande, son así.
Sí.
These are caiman. They grow up to 2 meters long and they're under threat of becoming endangered. The animals on offer are illegal to sell without a permit. Lifting the lid of a wheelie bin, she reveals even more.
Wow. What are these called?
Es camaleón colorado. Cocodrilo.
Oh, that's a crocodile in there.
Estos son estos.
How many in there? ¿Cuántos?
Acá hay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 con este.
How much?
¿Cuánto cuesta?
¿Cuánto?
Están 100 soles cada uno.
100 soles each.
$100 each.
That's £25 for my very own caiman. And Senora Natty isn't finished yet. She brings out a box full of baby monkeys.
Oh, muchas gracias. What's the name?
They're tamarins, highly prized as an exotic pet, also under threat of becoming endangered.
How many of these do you have?
4.
She also has a pygmy marmoset, the smallest monkey in the world.
Put it in. Oh, wow.
Why is she?
Yeah, why has it got this, the lead, the wire?
Dice que por qué tiene ese cable que si no le duele.
No, es porque no se larga.
Ah.
Sí, hay un mono así grande también, ¿ves?
¿Lo tienes acá?
You have a bigger monkey?
Sí, mencionaste un mono más grande. Que lo
Ay, ya, me voy a traer.
Ya, dale.
Pero, sí, es policías, hay que tener miedo.
Sí.
Los policías nos quitan.
So is it legal for you to have that animal?
Este aquí se trabaja todo secreto.
So to take them back to the UK, what do I need to do?
No.
What's the best way?
Todo esos monitos chiquitos se va a la farmacia y se compra pastillita.
Y
eso se le convida la mitadita para que duerma.
¿Mitad?
La mitad.
¿Y no se morirá?
No muere.
¿Y a dónde lo mete él? O sea, ¿a dónde lo esconde?
Aparte tiene que ir a toda una caja.
Una cajita, como de zapatos así.
Como zapato, así.
Natty suggests we drug the monkeys with sleeping pills. She also claims there's another way of getting the animals out of the country.
¿Y papeles no se pueden conseguir?
Papeles solamente para que vayan a sacar, cuesta caro.
Pero se puede.
Sí, con papeles pueden llevar.
¿Y cómo se saca?
Se va ahí a la comisaría, ahí se van a sacar los papeles.
¿Pero cómo? ¿Que hay que darle...?
Plata, pues.
¿Pero tienes algún contacto allá?
No.
She seems to be saying we can bribe the authorities. Natty has promised to show me a large monkey, but in fact it's a kinkajou, an animal related to the raccoon.
Por eso es que tenemos que enviar las fotos al experto y yo te llamo. Ok.
They start pressuring us for cash. It's time for us to go.
Gracias.
That was so intense. I've never seen anything like it. And that woman was selling animals like they were pieces of fruit. Those animals were absolutely petrified. The monkeys, when she was pulling them apart, they were screaming and I could see in their eyes they were terrified. It was just so bizarre.
I meet up with Noga Shani, a primatologist, to see if she can help me get my head around what I saw at Signora Natty's house.
Can you have a look?
They're all juveniles.
You know, the noises they're making, are they distress sounds?
This is screaming, basically screaming. They're really afraid. Every time that she pulls them, they just want to hold something. All these animals, like all the monkeys, the only way to get them, they must shoot the mother.
It's estimated that for every baby primate that's taken from the wild, half a dozen more are killed in the process. 30,000 primates die in this way every year.
They fall down and about half of them die in the fall or from the bullet. So they have to kill another mother and another mother.
When you see this type of trafficking on this scale, what goes through your mind?
The main thing I feel is that she needs to go to jail. No, it needs to stop.
Noga's also a wildlife activist who specialises in exposing illegal traffickers. That night, she reports our findings to the environmental prosecutor, who agrees to act. She also calls Signora Natty, pretending to be a foreign buyer, and sets up a meeting in 2 days' time when the police will be ready to carry out a sting operation. Meanwhile, Noga wants me to see some of the victims of the illegal pet trade. So we visit a sanctuary where animals that she rescued in the past have been sent.
Look at that. It's checking me out.
This monkey is one of the monkeys I brought here.
In Spanish, this is a tigrillo or an ocelot.
Yeah.
So where did you find this tigrillo?
One day the authorities, they called me that they confiscated 6 animals. And all of these animals were in the most horrible conditions. He had 4 or 5 fractures in his bones. He couldn't even walk one step.
He's trying to take my wheels. Oh no. I'm being groomed by a monkey. Oh my days.
Pilpintuasi Wildlife Refuge is run by Gudrun Spera.
In Lima.
Every animal here was rescued from either traffickers or people who kept them illegally as pets.
So how big a problem is it, poaching of animals and monkeys especially?
All Peruvian monkeys, all the species in Peru are already vulnerable. They should be protected. And it's partly to poaching, but people always used to hunt monkeys for food. Now the big problem is the hunting for pet trade. Because that means, even my workers tell me there are people coming to the hunters in the village and telling them, you know, when you go hunting, try to kill a mother. You eat the mother and you sell me the baby.
So who buys these monkeys?
People who have money and no brain. And sometimes also people who think they're rescuing them by buying them at the market. I'm going to buy it to save it, but by paying for the animal, they actually have created a market that didn't even exist 20 years ago.
Well-meaning tourists are making matters worse. But there's a major international trade in exotic wildlife. The UN claims it's the 4th biggest illegal industry in the world. Despite seizing around 4,000 animals a year, Noga says the Peruvian authorities have never put a single trafficker behind bars. She believes it's because wildlife is low on the political agenda.
If nothing is done and the poaching continues at the rate that it's going, what's going to happen in Peru?
We are in big shit, basically. There's not much hope.
Quite a few species will be gone in the next
there's
10
no
years.
question.
If it's going like this.
Whoa! Just leapt from nowhere. That was mad.
It's bad enough to think of species being lost from the Amazon rainforest, but because the ecosystem is so fragile, it could have devastating effects.
Fuerte! It's a beautiful place. It still makes me sad to think that all of those animals, all the trauma they've been through, but at least they get some peace for a little part of their lives here.
We head back to Iquitos with Noga. She's working with the police to prepare tomorrow's sting operation on the wildlife trafficker we secretly filmed. Shortly after dawn, we meet at a cheap hotel in Iquitos. Noga is posing as a buyer, waiting to meet Senora Nati.
Woman's coming here hoping to sell animals, but what she doesn't know is that there'll be plainclothes police people waiting to arrest her for wildlife trafficking. What Noga's doing is pretty dangerous, because although she's in the room next door to us, momentarily she's going to be on her own with this lady, and anything could happen.
If all goes to plan, armed undercover police will make the arrest. Liz Macedo Davida is the prosecutor who will build the case.
It's not long now, the operation is about to start. What's really crucial is that this woman is seen receiving money for these animals, because if she is, then her crime goes up from handling to selling.
Noga's fight against animal traffickers means that some of them know her. She decides to cover her distinctive curly hair with a towel. Next door, she places a hidden camera in her room to try and capture the moment when Senora Nati accepts the money, if she turns up. One of the other officers is in contact with a spotter outside the hotel.
¿Sabe cómo está vestido? Cabello corto tiene la señora, dice. Ella es, dice, ahí está entrando. Ya.
This is a pretty heavy moment because the woman's arrived and she's with Noga right now, and we're just waiting for the go-ahead to go in there.
¿Qué tal? ¿Me estás viendo cómo? Sí, sí, sí. O mejor, quédate aquí, vamos a poner el No, por eso está preguntando.
The commanding officer arrives. He'll lead the operation.
Vamos a ver un ratito los monitos que hay y ahí empezamos con eso, ¿ya?
Mira, estos son los loritos. Estos son los loritos.
We can actually hear the monkeys that the woman's trying to sell.
¿Hay más monos?
No hay, voy a hacer lo que me pedí. Pues.
Darte este para que no quede todo bien y ahí lo llamo y que a ver que...
The deal's been done. Now we just have to wait for Noga's call.
Este es el mancarato.
De frente, ¿eh? Uno, tú, vete.
Can you come? We are ready.
Okay.
Come?
Aquí están los lagartos, los camaleones.
Okay, it's time for action. Here we go. Go.
Acá, señora, buenos días. Párese un ratito, señora. Póngase ahí, por favor, que registra. Ya, vete, pon su mano ahí a la pared, señora.
Well, there's animals everywhere. The monkeys, there's some lizards on the floor.
No. Entiéndeme, señora. Usted acaba de cometer un delito. El cometer un delito ha conllevado a esto. Sus cosas están ahorita siendo intervenidas. Y en la fiscalía se va a determinar cuál va a ser su situación.
As Signora Natti's taken to the prosecutor's office, Noga takes a closer look at the animals.
How old do you think this one is?
It's less than a month old.
Less.
He's really thirsty. He's serious.
Wow, he's drinking so hard.
He really wants it. Okay.
It's just heartbreaking to think that this poor little monkey, it's less than a month old, was stored in a box in its own blood and its own feces. It's been taken away from its parents. It's traumatized, look at it.
The rescued animals are rushed across town to a vet for health checks.
Este es un mono machín, el nombre común. Más o menos tiene entre un mes y medio de edad. No es mayor que eso. Sabemos la edad por el ombligo que recién hace una semana que ha terminado de cicatrizar más o menos.
Ya bebé.
Él ha tenido una larva en la pierna. Ya.
The operation. Es una operación.
Ayúdame, Marlon. Ya está.
Yes.
Igual es bien bebito.
Bien bebé.
Y necesita vitaminas. Tiene úlcera en el ojo. Sí, se ha golpeado, por eso está así con lágrimas. Necesita antibiótico.
One of the tamarins is in a critical condition.
Yeah, this monkey has been tied up to stop it from escaping, but they've had to take the tying away from it because it's scarring it.
In all, Noga's rescued 20 animals from 9 different species, including the monkeys, iguanas, caimans, turtles, parrots, and agoutis.
Now Noga's going back to the prosecutor's office because she's going to try and build a case against this woman who tried to sell her the animals, and then the animals are going to be sent to a sanctuary and we're going to try and catch up with them there. But all in all, it's been a really emotional day. So dramatic.
It's my last day in Iquitos, and while the prosecution builds the case against Signora Natti, I catch up with the lead environmental prosecutor for the region, Pablo Ormeño Quiroz.
Why are you relying on evidence and information brought by people like Noga? Why isn't your office doing and gathering this information themselves.
Debemos recordar que Iquitos es una ciudad pequeña, digámoslo así, una isla, lugar donde comúnmente casi todas las personas se conocen. Comúnmente conocen quiénes son las autoridades, quiénes son los efectivos policiales. Ya ha sucedido en ocasiones anteriores que personal policial, representantes del Ministerio Público han realizado intervenciones, y lo que sucede es que la gente se aglomera y rodean al personal policial. Todos estos comerciantes, pues a la hora de una intervención, se coluden para atentar contra la integridad física. También existe el tema de informantes, que eso un poco complica que cuando uno organiza un operativo inopinado, estas personas ya tengan previamente el conocimiento.
It was suggested to us by a trafficker that we spoke to that it was possible to buy a permit to take illegally trafficked and endangered animals on aeroplanes from corrupt police officer.
Creo que sucede acá y sucede en todo el mundo. Siempre, a veces, existen malos elementos, tanto a nivel de la policía como en las entidades del gobierno regional, que permiten realizar este tipo de permisos ilegales en el fondo.
So you do agree that there is corruption in your system which is preventing you from stopping illegal wildlife trafficking?
Sí ocurre una corrupción al interior de las diferentes instituciones comprometidas en la lucha contra estas actividades ilícitas.
Before we head off, I want to see how the rescued animals are getting on. They're being held in quarantine at the Pilpintuasi Rescue Centre.
How are they doing then? How is she physically? And
She's definitely already better. She's strong, she holds on very well, and she is very hungry.
it's hard to ask this, but how close to death these animals were, you know, if they hadn't been rescued?
Few days at the most, I think.
It feels like there's so many animals that are being trafficked that it's kind of an uphill battle for you guys. So, I mean, how much satisfaction do you get out of saving individual animals?
Every baby like this is, important to save. And every person that goes to jail or being, threatened seriously of going to jail understands, and then there's less. I don't think we're winning, but we're doing something. Señoras. Oye. Vamos. Vamos, señoras, vamos. Oye, come on. There's nothing inside.
Signora Nati, the woman we helped to catch, was convicted of wildlife trafficking and given the maximum sentence available. She walked free with a suspended sentence and a £570 fine. No animal traffickers in Peru have ever been imprisoned. For the moment, the Peruvian authorities are offering almost no protection to the country's invaluable wildlife.
I'm sneaking into hospital with a doctor who's taking an enormous risk.
Some spicy and the man with the blue shirt.
Militia supporting the socialist revolutionary government patrol the corridors. They are feared by many. This is the Caracas Children's Hospital, and we're heading for the intensive care unit, the most advanced in Venezuela. Dr. Unreported Urbina wants to expose the chronic shortage of medicines and equipment that he says is costing lives.
Can you tell me about this boy here?
This is a patient with cancer. He needs a special treatment, chemotherapy.
And do you have the correct medicines for him?
Not at all.
Santiago is less than 2 years old. He's fighting a massive infection. Dr. Urbina says it's been made worse by the shortages because he hasn't always had the right antibiotics at the right time.
You can see his heart rate is high because his infection beginning from his cancer.
And it's not just medicines. The hospital lacks basic equipment for testing Santiago's blood, which is absolutely crucial to his treatment.
These are the father and mother of Santiago.
Tell me a little bit about Santiago. Does he have all the medicine he needs?
Nos ha hecho falta que sí, por ejemplo, por ahorita porque sí una bolsita para la colostomía, pero no es nada más en el hospital, sino a nivel nacional que nos ha costado mucho conseguirla.
Why do these shortages happen?
Everything we have to import, all the medicine, because in Venezuela we don't produce medicine, but all the thing needs dollars, and there's no dollars in Venezuela.
What's terrifying is that this is the best intensive care unit for children in Venezuela. And if they are suffering shortages here, I shudder to think what's happening in ordinary hospitals or even the bad ones. Santiago and thousands like him have become the victims of an economic disaster, which has left Venezuela unable to import basic supplies. Totally dependent on oil, revenues have collapsed as the price has fallen. And decades of mismanagement and political turmoil have led to runaway inflation and the worst recession in the world. Patients come to the Children's Hospital from across Venezuela. And 5 hours from Caracas, I'm going to meet another family whose lives have been upturned by medical shortages. ¿Cómo se llama?
Rocky.
Rocky. This is Maria and her dog, Rocky. This is my little girl.
Esa es tu hija.
And my dog.
El perro. Cuando era Navidad y la ropa del perro.
What injection do you have to have?
No pueden. Para que me suban la plaqueta. Y los valores y la defensa.
Velos a ellos.
Maria is 8 and has a brain tumour and epilepsy.
Quita la mano.
Both require constant medication, and her mum Yoli has become an expert nurse. Very brave. As well as the injections, Maria needs drugs to stop her having seizures. They're mostly caused by her epilepsy, but are made worse by the cancer drugs. Can you tell me what happens?
Que si yo estoy sentada, si no así estoy dormida, después me despierto y tiemblo así, y bien me da la convulsión, y saco la lengua, y me caigo.
The fits put a terrible strain on her body, and could even be fatal. But for Yoli, finding the anticonvulsive drugs is a constant battle.
Esta es Trilecta. Esta es la que se toma ella en la mañana a las 7 de la mañana.
These are the drugs that are very hard to get hold of.
Este es el que cuesta, el que ahorita se me hace difícil, que es el que me queda como hasta el martes.
Even though Maria looks so bright and well, she's desperately ill. Without the drugs, she'd have more than a dozen fits a day and could have a heart attack.
Mira.
With only a few days' supply at a time, she and Yoli live in constant fear that the medicine will run out. How does that feel when you are desperately searching for the medicine for your child and you can't find it?
A veces me desespero, que entro como que en crisis. Ya le queda poquito, ya tengo que buscar, muy desesperante. Ya por lo menos hoy ya comienzo, ¿qué hago? ¿Dónde la consigo? Es muy, muy, muy desesperante.
Suddenly, Maria starts to look very poorly. It's okay? Okay? Well, Maria's just had a short fit. It was quite a mild one, fortunately. But she's quite embarrassed that it happened in front of us, and so we're going to leave them alone for a while. Back in Caracas, there's anger on the streets. It's not just medical shortages people are suffering. With inflation at crazy levels, most families can only afford basic rations of subsidized food, which they have to queue for hours to get. When stocks run out, tempers fray.
They just closed one of the stores selling subsidized goods, and these people didn't get their share after waiting hours, and they're furious, so they blocked off the streets, and the National Guard are out. It's turning into a protest. How long have they been waiting?
This is an everyday problem. It's not like only today. They will tell you. And anyone here will tell you, they used to believe in the government, but they're mad. Even I did.
It's an astonishing change of opinion in a land that hailed the socialist revolution of Hugo Chavez just a few years ago. Maria's back in Caracas for treatment.
How are you? Have you had a sleep?
She's tired after the long journey, but with only one day's supply left, they've got to find more Trileptal, the drug she needs to stop her fits.
She seems tired today. Is she feeling okay?
Sí, a veces ella se pone como que cuando no consigue el remedio se preocupa. A ella no le gusta que le dé las convulsiones porque se agota mucho.
That must be very difficult for an 8-year-old.
We start searching the pharmacies. To import drugs, they have to buy the dollars they need from the government. But it's running out of dollars, so they're running out of drugs.
They don't even bother to go and look. It's just, no, of course we don't.
¿Acitracina o museo? No, este.
There's another one up here. We'll just keep trying. What's this? A queue. A queue to get into the pharmacy. Not this time. There's a list here of everything they don't have. There's about 60 drugs, really common ones. There's a really desperate feeling to this place. You know, they're only letting in a couple of people at a time. You get some big guy at the door stopping this 8-year-old child from going in when she's clearly a patient and wearing a mask. And inside, it's really depressing, to be honest, because there are just a load of pharmacists shaking their heads and sending people away. I'd be tearing my hair out by now. I don't know how she stays so calm. That's it. You've had enough. No, I don't blame you.
Impotente porque siempre cuando entro a una farmacia voy con la esperanza de obtener el remedio.
We went to so many pharmacies today and we didn't find Trileptal. Will you be able to sleep tonight?
No, definitivamente no, porque ya sé que en esas no hay, tengo que como que volver otra vez, comenzar mañana otra vez.
Dr. Urbina has agreed to take us back into the hospital.
Dr. Urbina?
But we're meeting at his private clinic first. He used to be director of the critical care unit, but says he was demoted for speaking out.
What happens to those who break the rules?
I supposed to be retired on 5-year time, and 2 years ago they fired me and they told me, you are against the revolution, you have to go out of your hospital. And in this kind of government, every time you say the truth, they think and they can tell you are breaking the law. Because in medicine, you have to say the truth. You cannot cheat on the patient.
Why are you prepared to break the rules and take us in?
I am almost an old man. I'm 56 years old, so I don't have nothing to lose.
We head to hospital and up towards critical care.
Okay, let's try.
But on the way, we bump into the man who replaced Dr. Urbina as Director of Critical Care. He's close to the authorities and could have us arrested if he finds out what we're all up to. Dr. Urbina tells him we're friends from the UK. I want to see what happened to Santiago, the little boy I'd seen on my first visit, but his bed is empty.
The last time we came here, we saw Santiago.
Yes.
What happened to him?
He became worse and worse, and it was almost impossible to stop the infection, and he became in a septic shock and he died.
The critical care team can barely stop for a moment to reflect on such tragedies. The impact of the shortages and the flow of new patients are both relentless. A 15-year-old girl has just been admitted. Rosalvis was born with a complex intestinal problem. She's had 5 operations for it, but the most recent one went badly wrong.
The stitches were with bad quality of the suture, and the stitches are breaking, and they have to go again to the operating room just to fix again the guts.
So you're saying because of the poor quality stitches that the government buys, this girl is now in critical care?
Indeed. It is so, it is so.
Rosalvis is now fighting a deep infection. She's conscious, but is very weak and needs more corrective surgery.
Do you have everything you need for the infection?
Sometimes there's no antibiotic, not all the antibiotics.
That's very serious in critical care. If you don't have the right antibiotics, a patient could deteriorate very quickly.
Yeah, and even die. Yeah.
Does that happen?
And sometimes.
It's a powerless and agonizing wait for Rosalvis's parents.
Can you tell me a little bit about Rosalvis?
Es una niña muy de la casa, muy tranquila. Aquí hemos sufrido, hemos llorado con ella. Han habido preocupaciones muy relevantes entre nosotros, pero que a la vez nos llena de fortaleza cuando un médico se nos acerca a nosotros. No vale, tranquilo, que tu hija tiene este problema, así, hay problema, hay riesgo, pero ella va a salir adelante.
She seems like a very brave girl.
Fuerte, mi niña es fuerte y esa es una niña que quiere vivir.
A few meters from where Rosalvis lies in bed, there's a gaping hole in the ceiling, a breeding ground for bacteria that could threaten every patient here.
That is forbidden in an area like this. But we cannot close this unit because this is one of the few that is working in Caracas.
Suddenly, he tells us to stop filming and hide in a side room.
The former director of the hospital saw me enter with you in the war, and he's very, very close to the revolution government.
So it's best we go?
Yes.
With Maria's supply of drugs running low, Yoli is getting desperate. Her last resort when she can't find Trileptol in the pharmacies is an underground source of donated medical supplies. The woman who's offered to help Maria has said that we can go and see how she gets hold of the medicines and does her work, but it's unpopular with the government because it shows up the shortages. So we're going to call her Luisa, and when we get there, we're going to protect her identity. When I find her, she's just received a delivery of donated medical supplies. So, Luisa, what are you doing?
Ahorita estamos clasificando lo que va a ser las medicinas para saber dónde las vamos a repartir. Son las donaciones para los niños. Esto es a nivel de los hospitales.
So where do you get all these things from? Do people send them from abroad?
Sí, hay unas que mandan de Houston, otras de Tenerife, otras de Barcelona. Mandaron de Bogotá, también hay de Bogotá. Aló, buenos días, ¿cómo está usted? Claro, no se preocupe, no se preocupe. Y se lo podría bajar como en 1 hora. Ok, perfecto.
What was this call?
Era una paciente que está necesitando un medicamento que se llama Crestor. Es un medicamento para los triglicéridos. Unos medicamentos que ya tienen más de 2 meses que no los ha podido consumir.
Is what you're doing legal?
Ilegal totalmente, porque ya tenemos la oportunidad supuestamente de que en el gobierno nos den las medicinas, deberían abastecernos de todo lo que necesita la gente en Venezuela. Pero como no lo tenemos, tenemos que traerlo. Ellos no permiten esto.
How much of a risk is this for you?
Fácilmente puedo ir presa.
Luisa has no Trileptal in her latest consignment, but she uses her network of people on social media who scour the pharmacies across the whole of Caracas. As soon as any becomes available, she can race to buy it before it runs out. I want to get one more look inside the hospital. Rosalvis will have had her operation, and I want to know how it went. Rosalvis was supposed to have her surgery.
Today, in the morning. Another one.
Right.
She went...
I thought she was going to have it 2 days ago.
Yes.
Why has it taken extra time to do that?
Because in this hospital we have 9 operating rooms. They're working only 2 of them. That's the first thing. We are lacking of anesthetists. We're lacking of surgeons.
The problem was the poor quality stitches. Do you have better stitches now, or will it be the same?
No, we have the same. Maybe instead of 3 stitches, they have to put 3 more or 6 or whatever the patient needs.
So is there a risk that the same thing could happen?
Yes.
After 2 days waiting in critical care, Rosalvis is finally being taken back into surgery. It's no wonder there are staff shortages. Around 10,000 doctors have left Venezuela in recent years. Why do so many of your colleagues leave?
To be honest, the salary. The economic situation of the country doesn't help you to buy basic things you need to live. If you have a low salary and the inflation is going up very fast, you get poorer every day.
How much does a resident doctor get paid?
We make around $30 to $35 a month.
$35 a month? So why are you still here?
Because I don't have any other choice. I could go to another country, but right now I can't because I don't have enough money to go.
After her operation, Rosalvis spent a week in a general pediatric ward, but her infection returned. By the time she was taken back to the critical care unit, it was too late, and eventually her heart gave out. The Venezuelan Minister of Health recently infuriated many doctors by claiming the shortages were caused by people irrationally using too much medicine. More, she claimed, than anywhere else in the world.
We were due to interview the Minister of Health today, but at the last minute her office rang to cancel. She went on state television instead to say that she is now ordering an emergency batch of basic medicines, but nobody knows how much, what, or when it will arrive. Yoli and Maria are on their way to meet Luisa. She's rung with good news. But without warning, Maria has a seizure.
Listo. 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 Ya. Todos los músculos se contraen, después de la crisis que tuvo, queda cansada.
Then Luisa arrives, and Maria is delighted to see her.
¡Hola, mi hermana linda! ¿Cómo estás tú?
Ok, tenemos 2 frascos de trileptal.
De verdad, bastante contenta porque María va a tener remedio como para mientras que consiga más, pues.
But Yoli's relief won't last long. She still only has enough medicine to last 2 weeks. And at times like this, she always thinks of other children, just like Maria. Children like Santiago and Rosalvis, who didn't always get what they needed to live.
Cuando yo veo a algunos pacientes morir, me da mucha tristeza y a veces pienso, en María de los Ángeles. Me da mucha tristeza, entonces siempre digo que no quisiera estar en el lugar de la mamá que sucedió.
It doesn't feel as though Venezuelans will tolerate this for much longer. Anger on the streets seems to be rising as quickly as the black market prices. This should be the richest country in Latin America, yet it can't feed its people, and it can't heal its children.